Okay, I call this regular meeting to order. City Clerk, may we have roll call, please?
Mayor Truitt.
Here.
Vice Mayor Villanueva. Here. Councilmember Longabaugh.
Here.
Councilmember Alton.
Here.
Councilmember Williams.
Here.
Councilmember Hall.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, if everybody would rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. For tonight's invocation, please welcome Trent Renner, who's a surprise resident. He's the chair of the Community Recreation Services and the pastor of Parkway Christian Church. Pastor Renner.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Mr. Mayor made a big mistake. He asked me to say a couple things. Never ask a preacher to say a couple things. I'm going to lead us off in prayer, and with all these different opinions, we need lots of prayer. Yes? Yes. No, you guys are great leaders. We appreciate you. We respect you. You represent us. Thank you for doing what you guys do on a volunteer basis. A quick thing to say, kind of a fun thing, a little devo to pray. I have yet to meet a person, no matter what you believe, who doesn't want to be a better prayer. And so kind of a cool thing, little trivia. How do you know your Bible? You know your Bible trivia? I gave the answer right. Jesus was born into a Jewish family. And so really to understand prayer life better, best thing to do is understand how a Jewish person prayed back in Christ's time. And it's fascinating. American, Western thinking prayer, we pray for ourselves. Come on, guys, you pray for your spouse to get better, right? Dear Lord, let my spouse improve. And it's like, no, you know what a Jewish prayer person did? They always prayed self-judgment. Wouldn't you and I like Christians better if we prayed self-judgment on ourselves? Pray for our own character. Pray for our own leadership. Pray for our own integrity. Pray to be servants. And so let's pray, and as we're praying and leading this off, may we all be representatives of a great city, and my prayer for all of us, be representatives of a great God. Pray with me. Father in heaven, I thank you for each person here. This is a great city. We love to live here. And I pray that you would bless each person that represents us that sits here in the city council and as mayor. May you honor them and their families. May they always look to you for guidance. May this meeting be one of unity and togetherness, all striving to achieve not our own personal agendas, Father, but how this city can be better so that we can live together as a people of encouragement, as a people of challenging one another, and making this world better simply because this dot on a map called Surprise, Arizona. We love you. We praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you very much. And just as a reminder to folks here and at home, tomorrow at 9 a.m., we will be celebrating the life of Mayor Joan Schaefer at the stadium. It's 9 a.m. Everybody is welcome to come, and there's a lot to celebrate, so we hope to see you there. Thank you very much for that. Current events. Let's see. Mr. Longabaugh, would you start us off?
Oh, Richard's going to get on my case again. I can already hear it. I've had the honor in the last couple of weeks of two really exciting events. One was to go on a tour of Luke Air Force Base along with most of the rest of the council. We got to see what the young men and women of our Air Force do for us in defense of our country and the kind of work they do. And Brigadier General Tom Jones was a very good briefer of telling us the mission of the base. I've been here in Arizona 5 years. I've watched those jets fly over my house, but I never really knew all about them until I went to the base and listened. So I thank you for that opportunity. The second thing is last Friday, because of Police Week, we had a banquet with the police department that, again, almost all of us got to. It was a wonderful event. I'll let others talk more about that, but I was very, very excited about being part of this city and having a police department that is, bar none, the best in the area. The last thing, I noticed that there's a bunch of Citizens Academy people. I think they're still here in the audience. I was honored to be a graduate of that academy back in 2004. I think I blame it partly on why I'm sitting up here now. So some of you in the class, watch out. You might get put on something and end up here at some point in your future. So thank you very much, Mayor. That's good for me.
Thank you, Councilman Alton.
Well, as true to form, Councilman Longabaugh took all of my stories. Yes, I too went to Luke. Was very impressed at their city, and it's a city within the county, and it's an awesome city, and it's a very dedicated. Their people, their Air Force recruits and officers are very dedicated to the cause. And it's an extremely important partnership that we have with Luke, and we hope to continue that partnership growing. I, too, also went to the police awards dinners, and I was amazed at the stories and of true heroism that has happened in our city. And there was numerous accounts of these fine women and men putting their lives at stake for us, and I appreciate them, and my dedication will always be to the police and to the fire of this fine city. I also went this last week to the Westmark, or the Western Maricopa County Enterprise Zone Committee meeting. It was very informative. The enterprise, as I stated earlier, the enterprise zone is set up to accommodate for some tax help on new businesses that locate within our certain parts of our city that are considered enterprise zone areas, as well as some help for employees as to their cost of maintaining an employee base at this business. Very, very important that we keep that in mind, especially in our economic development department when we're going out and looking for new business to locate here, that possibly there is some assistance, and it's been there for a long time. We just don't bring it to mind all the time, and I think we should. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor.
Oh, yes, I didn't have a chance to go to Luke Field, but I hope in the near future that there's another trip over there, and I'd like to go. But we did, Skip Hall and myself went over to the sewer treatment plant. Now, that's an operation that you can stay away from, but we were there about 3 or 4 hours. And that place is not labor intense. The technology is something else. And the staff that they have there is remarkable. We happened to get there at lunchtime, and they fed us hamburgers and what have you. And we met all the staff in there, and Rich did a tremendous job just taking us through the treatment plant. Like I said, we were there about for 3 hours, and it was fun. It was information and what have you. And that's about it.
Thank you. Mr. Williams.
Yeah, thank you. And Councilman Longabaugh mentioned the City Academy is here for a workshop. It's their second meeting. It's an 8-week process. They meet 10 evenings. And Bob Baratko and Ruby, if I could have you stand up. These two work tirelessly to put this class together. I'm a graduate of that. John Longabaugh is a graduate of that. And I want to thank you guys for putting it together. Thank you. So they're meeting, and that's another educational opportunity in the city of Surprise. And they've had other past candidates for council, mayor, and other very active civic leaders take that class. So good job. Coffee talk this Saturday, 9 to 11 at Empire Bagels. This Saturday, it's going to be a little different. We're going to have a representative of Westmark, representatives of Walmart as a result of some of the concerns of the residents. So they will address that. We'll have planners there, and that will be at 9 to 11 at Empire Bagels. Anybody has questions on the Persada development or want to see what's going on, come on out. I, too, attended the awards dinner, and just phenomenal job by our PD. We should all be proud of the work that they do, and it was very entertaining, to say the least, with their film. And then the last thing I had, there's an HOA connection meeting. Another thing that Community Initiatives does, a very valuable department that we have here with community outreach. HOA connection meeting will be May 15th, and anybody involved in HOAs, community managers, interested residents. There's a limited space, and I don't know if they've filled up yet, but contact Community Initiatives Department. That'll be May 15th at 5:30 p.m. and contact Community Initiatives for more information.
Thank you. Councilman Hall.
Yes, well, like Roy said, we went to the wastewater treatment plant, and it was very interesting, and I was so impressed that the aroma wasn't bad. Seriously, I mean, they do a great job over there. It's just amazing. Then I also went to Luke Air Force Base, and it was moving. It really was. The things that go on in that Air Force Base and to protect this country, they put out about 400 pilots a year. And you know where they go after they get trained. And then I went to the police banquet, too, so I was kind of on overload with heroism. Chief Hughes and his group it was fabulous. And they even had awards for a couple of citizens that helped the police arrest some people, which was really cool. I also attended 2 meetings for the Western Trails concept. We're trying to get that off the ground. And the Western Trails concept is one which it gives people an option of how to visit the Grand Canyon rather than just flying into Phoenix and renting a car and driving up I-17. Why not come out to Surprise and start here and see the Heard Museum and the West Valley Art Museum, and then proceed up to Wickenburg and see the historical things there, the Caballeros, and then go through Yarnell and Skull Valley and the back way to Prescott. It's a lot more interesting than humping up to 17. So we're trying to put this concept together in the Economic Development Department. Megan Griego out of the Economic Development Department is doing a great job. She's coordinating it, and we're getting people involved from each city. We're going to have a familiarization tour that we'll be doing on June 7th. And I'm going to ask a council person to join us, and hopefully Mayor Truitt can join us. There's going to be mayor and council from each of those cities I just talked about on this familiarization tour. And we're going to have presidents of chambers, economic development people, and we're going to develop a web page, get a brochure going, and get this thing kicked off. But we need help from everybody, private sector and the public sector can be an enabler and help. So anyway, that's end of that speech. I also went to, we had a security and safety town hall meeting. Ken Johansson, the president of Sun Village, and Dick McComb, the community manager at Sun Village, put together a fabulous thing with Chief Dan Hughes and the officer Mark Ortega. And we had I would say there was probably 250 people showed up. It was fabulous. And Mark Ortega did a great job. Mayor Truitt was able to show up and encourage all of us to be safer and secure. And really the whole point of it was we have to take responsibility. We can't just rely on the police department. We've got to look out for our neighbors, and we've got to look out for ourselves. And that was the overall. And how we can do that, it's amazing. The end of the presentation, the community manager showed pictures of garage doors that have been left open in Sun Village over the last 3 or 4 days, just left open. And it's really something. You're just inviting people to come and violate you. So we've got to be, we've got to be more vigilant, and that was their message. But I really appreciate Chief Hughes and Mark for doing that. That's it.
I have to apologize to Councilman Johnson because Councilman Hall took all his time.
I'm sorry, Joe.
Wow, I know how you feel now, Richard. Sorry. But you know what's the funnier part? The mayor's he's last, so I'll get. Oftentimes, we give our what we've done and stuff, but this time I feel we had 2 very important things that we showed support of in going to, and that was the police awards banquet. I want to thank Chief Hughes. I want to thank Neil Rackers of the Cardinals for coming and speaking also.
very, very funny guy, but very down to earth. When I got a chance to talk to him, he gave a little bit of a speech of who the true heroes are, and that he said people oftentimes say football players and athletes, but he said that really it's the men and women that protect us, which is our police departments and our military, and he gave a very good speech, and he's a very, very funny guy, actually. I told him the only game I went to was the San Francisco game last year when he missed a game-winning field goal, but just very humorous guy. And then thanks to all the officers out there. Dan, I see you back there. Thank you. Thanks to all the officers. They keep us safe. They do a great job, and thanks again. Thank you to General Jones and Rusty Mitchell for the Luke Air Force tour. We got to look in the F-16, and those pilots, they're not riding in Cadillacs, gang. Those quarters are real tight. So when they go up there and they're up in the air for hours, it's quite a feat. And they have to be in good shape and well trained. And seeing that plane and what they fly under and the pressure and the quarters that they're in is just phenomenal. The F-35 Joint Strike Fighter is the next thing. We got to fight very hard to get Luke involved in that. So I think all of us will be on top of that. Couple more things. If you didn't tune in earlier, Mayor Schaefer tribute tomorrow 9 o'clock at the stadium, which the mayor mentioned. And then midnight the 21st, first movie theater and surprise. So I know my son and all his friends in high school and all that are jumping up and down. So it's just the beginning of a family entertainment center over there, and that's been a long time coming for our residents, so I'm happy to announce that. So other than that, Mayor, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And, you know, it's really my pleasure to listen to all the councilmen and how busy they are, active in their community, and how much they care about doing a great job. And so, gentlemen, I thank you for that. It was my pleasure to be at the Luke tour, great tour. My pleasure, and I was very proud of the turnout of council at the police awards banquet. We support our police. We want to have continue to have the safest city in Arizona, as we do now. I attended a community meeting with Councilman Williams in Sierra Montana on Saturday. It was my opportunity and privilege to talk to the City Academy on the same evening that City Clerk and the City Attorney did, and thank you for that opportunity. This looks like it's going to be a great class, and we look forward to you leading in the future here. I also went with Councilman Hall to the Western Trails meeting on Saturday. It was very, very good. And unless you perhaps worry about the mayor working too hard, and so I had a little fun this week too. It was my privilege to go on a refueling mission with the Air National Guard, the Copperheads. And so we went up in a C-135 that was full of fuel, and the F-16s, these particular F-16s came out of New Mexico, did fly within about 10 feet of our plane, and were lying down looking through a window right into the eyes of the pilot as they're being refueled. It is an incredible experience, and if I get the opportunity to get the rest of the council on one of those trips, I'm certainly going to encourage each one of you to do that. It was phenomenal. So we've had a busy 2 weeks, and I think that concludes council reports. We'll turn it over to City Manager.
Mayor, Council, good evening. Tonight we've got Mr. Coronado is going to do an update on Mayor Schaefer Memorial Field, and I think it's really apropos given tomorrow's event.
Mayor and Council, Ms. Ferrara, very quickly, the City Manager asked us to update you. Back in December of last year, the Council voted to name the field at Dreamcatcher Park Joan Schaefer Field. I want to be clear, because there was a lot of questions at the time, we're not changing the name Dreamcatcher Park. And I said, no, we're not. Just like the stadium, Surprise Stadium, Billy Parker Field, it's the same philosophy, the same type of challenge that we'll have to distinguish what the park is and what the field is. To let you know that the Parks and Recreation Department has worked with a sign company, and we have contracted and actually fabricated the Joan Schaefer Field sign. I know there was some concern by some on the council that maybe we waited a little too long. I want to assure the council that I had the pleasure of talking to Mayor Schaefer, actually the last game of spring training on Thursday, when she was trying to get Joe Garagiola's autograph. And she was adamant that she was going to get not 1 but 5. And I talked to her and I let her know that we were in a process of finalizing the sign, and that Mayor Schaefer, we could do 2 things. We could do a dedication at the end of April, when the spring season is probably half as much as it is in the fall. And if you know the mayor, and she used to do the stereotype nod, she liked to nod, and she says, I like the fall, because there's going to be more kids, more families, and I want them all to be there. We did anticipate the challenges and the emotion that we've all shared the last 30 days, but I can assure you that Mayor Schaefer was aware that the sign was being fabricated, and we were going to dedicate Joan Schaefer Field as council directed us to do. So I can assure the council, in September, we will have a grand ceremony, and forever Dreamcatcher Park will be the place where children play on Joan Schaefer Field at Dreamcatcher Park. And City Manager, that's my report.
Thank you, Mark. That really is a home run. I also wanted to, recently we lost another member of the Surprise family. Roberta Lang lost. I'm sorry, I didn't know I was going to be emotional. She was executive specialist to the city manager, and she was a very fine lady. And on behalf of the staff, I wanted to give my condolences to Ron and their family. And Mayor, this evening we also have a presentation from Bob Beckley, and he's going to do a Public Works update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have a short presentation that is our quarterly update from Public Works. If I can find that here. Yes. Approximately each quarter, Public Works appreciates the opportunity to come to council to give you an update on the current status of our projects. We have buildings, city buildings we'll review tonight, as well as the parks improvement projects. On the building side, we have City Hall, which I believe all of you, if not had a chance to visit the site, but also speak with Terry Lowe, our project manager division manager, on the current status of City Hall. It's 36% complete, and the fire station, which you'll see shortly, is almost 50% complete. At City Hall, this is a picture of the webcam. This is taken every half hour, I believe, and you can go to our city website and check on the CIP project page under City Hall and pull up the current photo of the work in progress. Our milestones here, the garage, which I think you have seen, is nearing complete. It should be complete by the end of the month, and work is progressing on the concrete of every floor, placement on each of the floors, and they're up to the third and fourth floors in terms of pouring the foundations. South building also is well under construction, as you can see in the picture. At Fire Station 7, at the southern end of the city, you see the architect's rendering on the top, and you'll see the current picture of what's been completed to date. It's the center portion of the building, the bay area, the vehicles, and work is progressing very, very well in that, and we're anticipating a building completion in September of this year. On the parks improvements, we have Surprise Farms, which we really began construction just last week. Pickleball courts, they're under plan review and also design at this point in time. Gaines Park restrooms will be complete. They're just minor punch list items. And Lizard Park and Bicentennial Park has been previously completed. A few photos just to touch on the park's improvements. Surprise Farms Park, you'll see the red line through there. That's basically the partitioning between where the softball fields are located, which will be completed. And in this area right now, if you go out to the site, you'll see fencing all around the perimeter of the entire park, this and this section also. And inside you'll see earth moving equipment going on, and what they're doing is excavating a temporary pond for construction water. In order to keep the dust down, the park is so large that there's a large pond being constructed of about 1 million cubic feet of water. So that work is underway. The dust control measures, I think we're getting a good handle on that, and that'll be drastically improved over the next few weeks, and earthwork construction will commence. This is just a shot of the tennis court and the placement of where the pickleball courts will be placed. It's if you are at the tennis courts, it's the extreme southwest portion of the facility, and then the lake would be immediately to the northeast of the shaded area. And then finally, Lizard Run. We have the completed park that has been completed and has had some use to this point. And then finally, I think I've got one more slide as far as the Gaines Park restrooms. Very attractive facilities for the people that will replace one of the older restrooms at Gaines Park. And that completes my report. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Beckley. In our last report, staff has been working really hard on a customer service request process, and Randy Jackson and Miriam are going to present this for the council.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. With the Mayor's permission, I'd like to ask the audience a question.
Yes.
How many of you have sent an email or a phone call to City Council or the Mayor in the last 3 months? Okay. What this process is to do is to streamline and improve the way that we handle citizen requests to the council and the mayor and also to city departments. The system is utilizing existing software, so there's no cost associated with it, and it's already used by several departments for their work orders and for their service requests in their departments. One of the things we looked at is making sure that we have some benefits to the council and to the entire management team. Some of those benefits are creating a uniform process that is available for all citizens, and it's not different from one time to the other. We wanted to make sure that concerns by district are noted and that you can get reports on what kind of concerns are available in your districts. Also, we wanted to make sure that we coordinate responses that are made by departments and report those back to you, and you can respond back to the citizens, or you can let the staff respond. That'll be your decision to make. Features of the new system are we're going to start entering through a central point those questions that come in to council or to emails, and we'll be working with you on the exact process. We're going to, once a question has been sent to council, we'll have an immediate response back to them, and it will be entered into a tracking system. They'll get a number, and by July they'll actually be able to look up and see where that request is, what's the status, and how it has been resolved. As a part of this, we will be able to monitor resolution times and once again provide reminders to departments or individuals that have been assigned to these. The timeline, this is really fast-tracked. We've already started it. We've informed the department heads it's coming, although some departments are already using it. We plan We've had to we are developing a flow chart of the whole process so that everybody understands who gets what, and who's on first, who's on second. We're also educating department directors on especially the department directors that haven't been involved in the process so far. We've been certainly working with Miriam and the management staff to create this process. We plan to implement it by June 15th, and the web part of it, where people can enter these requests on www.surpriseaz.com, will be available in June. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, that concludes our report. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Those were some good reports there. Glad to hear the progress that's happening. Call to the public. City Clerk?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. We have Bob Vakanovich.
Mayor and Council, I'm Bob Vakanovich. I had some concerns here I'd like to address tonight. Sometimes I don't know. You have these consent items, and I don't know how I'm going to take care of these. Whether I'm going to put the consent items after the meetings and come 2 weeks after the meeting, or try to address you. Because when I address you with these consent items, then I don't know if you're going to take them off and you're concerned about them. My concern was on a meeting of April 24th. You had item number 10. There was no discussion about this item, and it involved approving of a park, a small park. And my concern was why was Randy Jackson, which is information technology, why was he the contact person when we have Mark Coronado? That was one of my concerns. Another one of my concerns was I don't even know if it is legal to take a retention basin and accept a retention basin because the basin, I believe, should stay with the subdivision or the townhouses or whatever. But you took over what I believe is a retention basin. In that they made a park out of retention basin. Now you had some backup on it, but I'm just wondering. You know, last year the council gave $50,000 to a park, and if I'm correct, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that park was that park that we gave $50,000 to that park what you accepted. You didn't have that information. So my question is, did we give that $50,000 when we gave $50,000 last year for a park? Was it to that park? Because I believe it is. Another thing I have, these light poles in the original town site. Light poles were supposed to be already paid. They were supposed to be in already. Still nothing about that. The money. I hear all kinds of money. You guys are going to spend money, and we have employees that have earned in excess of their wages, and we have no money to pay them. But we have money, lots of money, that we don't even know where the money is going to go. I'm talking about, it sounds to me like $250,000. Where's that money going to go? We have no idea. But we can't even pay our employees their earned benefits that they earned for last year. Now, sometimes I'm not going to be here, and I'm concerned because I saw an article about the Crossroads, about us accepting the Crossroads. I believe Roy would know. Crossroads, I think, been here 20 years. I think it came here in 1980. And they Mickey Mouse their repair job. They paid around $90,000 for a patch job over there. Now we're talking about taking over the responsibility, the maintenance of the road. And I hope you don't do it while I'm gone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. By my count, there's 5 separate items. Perhaps, City Manager, you can see to it that those items are addressed with Mr. Vakanovich.
We will do that, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Does that conclude the call to the public?
Yes, it does, Mayor.
Thank you. We move to the consent items. Is there any council person that would like to pull or has a question on any consent item?
Item 4.
Item number 4. Anything else? Okay, let's take a look. Mr. Johnson.
I just have a concern of, we've already allocated $100,000 toward this effort. When the ad hoc foreclosure committee came before us, I was a little skeptical, but I kept an open mind and I voted for it, figuring they were going to come back with suggestions to us. And now I'm finding we're starting to fund this, and it's funded now with $100,000, and now this is going to be $150,000. I would think, why is the rush? My question is, why is there a rush right now? Let's let the committee work and come to their suggestions, bring those in front of us, and if we have anything to add at that time, we can, and if they need funding, we can take it out of council contingency at that time. I'm also under the belief that, or I believe that the revitalization committee, which the $100,000 is coming from, they voted also to wait for a plan from this committee, and they didn't want that $100,000 taken out. So I would tend to agree with them. What is the rush? We agreed to have an open mind and form an ad hoc committee to come back with suggestions, and we're already trying to fund it with $150,000. I think we should leave it where it is, wait until they come back, and then if we have things to add to what they've come to us with, I'd be more than happy to take it out of council contingencies at that time. But without a plan, I don't see spending money like that. Thank you.
Assistant City Manager, are you prepared to address that?
Yes, at the budget meeting, you asked us to look at, does code enforcement need additional funds depending on what's going to happen with this committee? And because of the foreclosures, there was a concern that this year there may be, before July, there may be a need to do some things. And so the $100,000 was for next year. The $50,000 was for this year. And the $100,000, yes, you're correct. They did vote to give that to code enforcement, but the revitalization committee, but they also asked that there be a plan. And the first meeting of the foreclosure committee is in next week. So there is a plan to have the committee to meet, and they potentially could have some suggestions before July. And that was the reason it was brought forward at the request of council.
Okay, thank you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull item number 4 from the consent. We'll move forward with the consent, and then we'll come back to item number 4 for some discussion. So are there any other questions on the remaining consent? May I have an action, please?
Move to approve the consent agenda, less item 4.
Motion and a second, please cast your vote.
Councilmember Johnson? Is that correct?
Oh, no, why? Okay.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll return to item number 4 for, first of all, further discussion from council.
Through you, Chair.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure that Councilman Williams would like to speak to this subject as well. Yes, the ad hoc committee has not started yet, and they are going to have their first meeting and get sworn in next week. This money is, because it was a budget item, it was being addressed that we may need these monies later, not necessarily right away, and there's no urgency. There's no plan in place at the present time. What we anticipate seeing is that our foreclosure situation is increasing daily. Therefore, we need to address this. Hopefully, the ad hoc committee will address as to what agencies and service providers are available that might come out and do some counseling, and provide the network in which to maybe communicate with the lenders and maybe modify some loans and work on behalf of trying to keep the person or the persons in their home. I think that's our paramount responsibility as a city, is to provide that service. It's not going to cost us anything to do it. There are service agencies in Phoenix and in the east side of the valley, and I've gone to several meetings, and I've stood up and said, you know, what we elect to do is to have these agencies be available for the West Valley. We experienced a tremendous growth about 5 years ago at the same time as these arms were being purchased. And now that's coming to fruition. People can't afford yada, yada, yada. That being said, we are just looking forward to an anticipation of using these monies to abate property. However, as I discussed with the city attorney earlier, and we need to address it in city council, and that is we need to enforce, or we need to beef up our code enforcement laws and regulations as to give it some teeth so that they can issue the citations, and if we need to abate the property, go in and handle the problem ourselves by using an outside contractor and putting a lien on the property, so be it. Yes, there are different mechanisms in which to accomplish that, and hopefully the ad hoc committee would address that. But Councilman Johnson, I believe it was our opinion that we are probably going to need to enforce or to enhance our code enforcement capabilities, and this would be monies to be able to do so.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, because I've brought this off of consent, is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this?
Yes, Mayor, we have one person. That would be Bob Vukanovic.
Mayor and Council, Bob Vukanovic. You know, I found this strange, this item 4, is because on March 27th, members Williams, Council Member Williams and Alden, they had it for open discussion. Then when we came back to the next meeting over there, April 24th, both Alden and Williams were contact people for this year, for open discussion. But when you come here for $50,000, all of a sudden it's Kathy Rice is the contact person. What happened to Alden and Williams? What happened to our open discussion? So I was concerned about that. And I couldn't understand this here. You had March 27th when you voted when you wanted to form the committee. And I couldn't find, but I found a resolution, and the resolution says February 21st. I couldn't find where you made the action on February 21st. I don't know if that's just a error or what. So, and then you have to define what this committee is supposed to do, and they're supposed to be no longer than 16 weeks. They're supposed to have a report. So since they've been nominated, this committee, they haven't had any meeting that I can find. They haven't had a meeting. You already answered that question. So who decided the $50,000? So that was my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll make that item number 6. Mr. Johnson?
Through the chair, I'm not saying I'm against trying to eliminate or trying to add some teeth to our municipal code to put liens on properties. As a matter of fact, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe one of the resolutions that committee and that ad hoc committee will probably come up with is we need a code with some teeth in it and a way to enforce that. I've talked to Forrest and I've talked to the city attorney, and there seems to be, they're on top of it and they're moving forward. So I just and to Councilman Alton just said, quote, these things are not going to cost us anything to do it. So I just have trouble. $150,000 might not be a bad amount if they come up with some good programs or some good things that we support. But I just think allocating the money now is putting the cart before the horse. I think we ought to let them come back to us. We can add something if we want to at that point, if we have ideas, or we can take the recommendations. But to allocate the money now, if we put it toward this, Kathy, or somebody in accounting, can you tell me how that's going? Are we going to set up a fund now that's the ad hoc committee foreclosure fund, and that's going to roll over until next year, or how are we going to fund this thing? And
this $50,000 would come out of your contingency fund as you requested at the budget meeting. If it's not used, it would roll over to the next year. The $100,000 that you put into the budget is out of the 10% set aside.
Right. But so that's going to come out of this year's. Next year's will reset to $500,000 for council, and this will be still remaining in I don't know what you're going to call it, the ad hoc foreclosure.
We would not spend any money until we came back to you and gave you a plan and showed you how we would spend it.
Right, but what
They
I'm
have
saying,
no authority, this committee has no authority to spend money.
what I'm saying is, if we're allocating the dollars and we say yes, you're asking for 50,000 out of contingency fund.
Correct.
Okay, for funding the foreclosure committee. So you're going to set up a fund, or you want us to keep, because every year it resets. We get $500,000, and we're going to take the 2 officers out of that, so that's going to go down by that amount. Are you telling me that it's not? We're going to take an additional 50,000 next year?
No.
Okay.
I'm telling you that this 50,000 that is being asked for currently
Right.
is out of the contingency,
Right.
council contingency. The next year, that 100,000 is out of the 10% set-aside funds that's reviewed by the revitalization committee.
So, and there's going to be a separate fund called the ad hoc foreclosure fund, or what? How are we going to do that?
This money would be available for them to make recommendations to you for code enforcement to use to abate issues related to foreclosures. If that's
Through your
Okay,
chair.
so then why are we moving it? If it's coming out of council contingencies, you're just sort of trying to get it out of there now, so we don't have to take it out of there next year, or what is it? What are we doing?
recommendation at the budget meeting.
Okay. So
Mayor, council, normally we wouldn't charge something directly to council contingency.
Right.
We come to you and request to move into another line item, and then we would charge against that line item.
Okay, Councilman Williams and then Councilman Alton.
Thank you, Mayor. At the retreat meeting, I was vocal about supporting code enforcement. This is a code enforcement issue, my concerns, and the concerns that we're having with the foreclosures. Abandoned properties are marked with blight, and the idea behind this money was to, in fact, provide resources for code enforcement. I can understand the concern there with the way it's kind of proposed, I guess, as $50,000 in funding for the foreclosure committee, and maybe I didn't make that clear in the retreat. Certainly, I want to support that, and I agree with Councilman Johnson. We need to wait to see what they come back to us with. I think perhaps this might need to be tabled and reworded and then further discussed, because I think that it's intended for the code enforcement and not necessarily for the foreclosure committee.
Mr. Alton?
I totally agree, and probably it was worded wrong, and I don't anticipate, well, other than abatement, I don't anticipate any other costs. And I think that if we just put it back into our contingency and left it alone, but all of us know that at one time or another in the next 16 weeks or after, we may get a request. So if we can, and that be the earmark, is we earmark it ourselves, okay, but let's toss it back into the contingency. That being said, should it then be declined?
Well, what I would ask the council to do is to take an action on this particular item and then request either at tonight's meeting or at some future meeting that this come back onto the agenda. May I have an action, please?
I move to deny.
Mayor and council, if I may, I would recommend that you continue indefinitely.
I recommend. I make the motion to continue this item indefinitely.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Thank you,
Any
Mike.
further discussion? Please cast your vote.
Unanimous vote to continue indefinitely.
Very much. Mrs. Aguilar.
Okay, thank you. Item number 10, consideration and possible action on items discussed during the fiscal year 2009 budget retreat and May 8th work session.
Mayor, members of the council, just as a point of clarification, I'd like to draw your attention to the PowerPoint slide on the screen here. When we talk about permanent reductions to the council contingency fund that was discussed during the budget retreat, this is the amount. $174,700 is what we are going to be reducing the council contingency fund for next year. That will give you a total of $325,300 for next year. The item that was previously discussed would have been a one-time transfer from this fiscal year, so it would not have been a permanent reduction of your council contingency fund unless you directed us to do so. So I just wanted to make that clarification. It is related to the item at hand. So this item here tonight, item number 10, is, I'm not going to go through the presentation. This is the exact same information that we presented to you during the work session. This item is on here for you as council to take action if you deem necessary on items that you may or may not believe you had consensus on during the budget retreat and during this last work session. And with that, I will turn it over to the mayor and council.
Thank you very much. Is that understood that this is an opportunity to take action on the recommendations?
I have a
Mr. Hall.
Through the chair, I would like to make a motion to remove the chief of staff division manager position out of the 09 budget.
second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I just would like to say a couple things. At the budget retreat, I mentioned some things about moving, finding 1.6 extra for the Surprise Farms Park. I discussed a lot of things, and I'm not going to go into detail that long. I'm just saying I think that rather than the 1.6 devoted 1.6 million that we added to that park, I think it could have been done the same way. Maybe not the just in my opinion, just to change a portion of that park so it drains correctly is not worth $1.4 million. So I'm not going to deny a $400 million budget on that, but I wanted to just express my concern and that I didn't approve of that budget change. So that I wanted to express concerns with. As far as the position, I'd like it not to be chief of staff titled, but I would like it to be assistant to mayor and council, but I'd like to keep that, and I'd like to keep it where it's at, and then at a later date we can determine if it's going to be appointed or if it's going to go through the city manager, and at which time I think if it's going to be through the city manager, I think it should be under her budget, not ours. So I think that's the only really two items I had on the budget, and I just wanted to make my statement.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I mean, Mr. Hall, is that Mr. Johnson's recommendation consistent with your motion?
No. No. My motion and was seconded by Councilman Alton to actually remove the position chief of staff division manager out of the 09 budget. Okay.
Okay.
And if I can talk about it for a minute, I mean, this is what I have given this a lot of thought. This is not a quick and dirty decision. I've given it a lot of thought. There's too much confusion about this position, okay? There's not enough clarity. And I cannot justify in my mind, with all due respect to the mayor, because I know he differs with this, but with all due respect, I cannot justify to myself or my constituents the money that's spent for this position when we are in an austere economic times. I can't do it. And I've thought about it a lot. So that's my motion. And that's
Thank you very much. Any further comments? Mrs. Aguilar, do we have anybody from the public that would like to speak?
Yes, we do. The first person will be Bill Lipscomb.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Bill Lipscomb. I do appreciate this opportunity to come before you this evening to share with you some of my concerns regarding the city's budget for 2009. I have reviewed the 411 pages of the budget. I've watched the budget retreat, and I have been in attendance this evening for your work session. Regarding the budget, first, as always was already commented, we are faced with a 21% reduction in revenues for this city. It's going to have a dramatic impact on how we fund for the necessary positions that we currently have. For this reason, I believe it is imperative that you, in your role as stewards of the public's hard-earned monies and in compliance with your fiduciary duties, that you scrutinize every aspect of the budget to trim the fat and forego creating any new positions which are not absolutely necessary. Regarding the position of the Chief of Staff, and again, the title's been changed to recommended or proposed to be the Mayor and Council Division Manager. Please appreciate and understand that my concern pertains to the position and is in no way a personal issue here. First, my concerns are that before a position is created, it should undergo a study to validate and verify that such a position is absolutely necessary. Once that is completed, a job description should be formulated to the extent that possibly can be done, and to itemize all the duties and responsibilities, and then determine what is a fair compensation for the services of that position, and what the council believes the job is actually worth, and not simply or an arbitrary dollar amount. I believe the dollar amounts that we're speaking about right now is $125,800, and I think that is absolutely exorbitant. Now, when I also looked at, just this evening, I looked at the job description, and I think some of you have just probably looked at it for the first time this evening. And I would say that in my strong opinion, that job description is extremely, extremely flawed. And I think that really necessitates a scrutinizing by the members of the council here to make sure that if you're going to go with the position, that the job description is accurate. And again, in conclusion, I just simply ask that you give considerable deliberation on this position before you're taking any action. And the decision you make tonight will tell the story as to how much and how well you as our elected city leaders govern the city and take care of the people's money. And again, remember that the people, the citizens are watching. And again, I thank you for this opportunity to speak to you this evening.
Thank you.
The next person is Norm Davis. Okay, thank you very much. And the last speaker is Mike Woodard.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Mike Woodard. I have been kind of floundering on this particular position. I have supported it at times, and then I have opposed it at times. As the dollar value continued to rise, I had more and more disagreements with it. However, tonight, after I got here, I received the job description for a mayor and council division manager. So that's 3 meetings, 3 different titles. One of the things that's particularly on the job description, that's where I'd like to gear. Supervises staff. I'm not aware that there is any staff in that division, because the division hasn't really been created, I don't believe, until somebody's hired. So there's no staff to supervise. Acts as a representative of the mayor and council in dealings with constituents. Well, that's adding another layer of government between me and you. And I oppose that. Now, many of you, I have no problem with you know, I can call. Any of you I can call. I have, I think, every one of your home phone numbers, so if I want to call you, I can. But there's not everybody that has that. Not everybody is able to just pick up the phone and call. And we don't need another layer between the citizens and our elected officials. Directs the activities of assigned division to include overseeing the development and administration of policies, procedures, programs, goals, and objectives. Directs the activities of the division. Well, she's going to direct her own activity. Excuse me. This person will direct their own activities. Administers and monitors the division budget. I don't think there's a division budget, unless she's talking about the council's budget. Reviews, prepares, and presents reports on division programs and activities. Again, what programs is this division going to be doing? Responsible to and resolve sensitive questions or concerns from the general public. Again, there's that other layer. When I see this job description, I see a lot of fluff. I see a lot of embellishment, and I'm not, personally, not very happy about it. And I guess my time's up, so.
Thank you. Does that conclude the people concurring to speak?
Yes, Mayor, it does.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? If not, please cast your vote.
No, this is just on the amendment or the whole budget? This is on the motion. This is on the amendment, okay.
Mayor, oh.
I'm sorry. 3 yes vote and 4 no vote. Johnson, Truitt, Villanueva, and Longabaugh.
Thank you very much. Do I have any further motions?
Mayor, if I can make a comment? Just in regards to the position, I think that I'm coming from a different point of view. I think the position is warranted. When we voted in January, I approved it and I spoke to that because I think we're growing up. As a city, we're growing up. We're going to need to grow up internally. The issue I have now is a dollar amount. And I have problems, as Councilman Hall has indicated, in justifying that amount for this position when employees with this city have not received a performance pay, when we're arguing over how to collect money to support public safety, code enforcement, all these other issues that impact the residents directly. I have problems justifying it in that sense. I think that if we could look at the dollar amount, I think that I would appreciate that at the least. Thank you.
Perhaps Mr. Bowers can speak to that issue. I think the question was, looking at the dollar amount, is it appropriate for the position, and how did we come to that conclusion?
Again, to reiterate what we had talked about in the work session, is that once the duties for the position have been established, then the position is placed into a classification and the pay range has already been established. It's not a situation where we look at a particular position and do a survey to or do comparables and establish a specific pay range. Once the placement of 2 existing positions, the executive administrative specialist and the assistant to the city manager were to be placed under this position and supervised by this position, then it became a division manager, and the pay range for division managers in this city has already been established, and that's how the dollars were arranged at. To reduce the pay would require a discussion about changing the duties.
Okay. Question. We're not reinventing the wheel on this. What are other municipalities? Was there cost comparison to other municipalities as far as job description, salary, and all those things?
Well, we do have that information, and the position of similar titles in other municipalities is paid anywhere from $40,000 or $50,000 a year to well over $100,000, because those positions, while the title may be similar, are very different. Some are administrative specialist type folks, and others are, division managers or department managers supervising many people. So the comparison is very difficult because the title may be the same and the duties are very different.
Through you, Chair.
Through the chair.
Mr. Alton.
I am really concerned, and what I'm concerned about, Mr. Bowers, is that I don't even know how this came about. Now, we hired a contractor, and then a budget item became on the budget, and there's been lots of discussion. But at whose direction did you create this? The direction is from the city manager? You created this job description in this division manager?
Exactly, and I didn't create the job description. The job description evolves from the detailing to us of what the duties are going to be.
And who gave you that?
The city manager.
And who did the city manager get that from?
Like any other budget request that comes to the council, as we sit with the council and discuss whatever issues there are, staff is looking at opportunities to do whatever the council has asked us to do. The chief of staff position.
I don't mean to interrupt, but we already took a vote, so city attorney, shouldn't discussion stop?
Mayor and council at this point in time, unless there is going to be a subsequent motion, that would need to be made. However, the motion was made, that item was, the motion in the form that it was made was denied. To make the same motion at this meeting would be inappropriate.
Right. I'm not going to. I'd like to make a motion, please. I'd like to make a motion that we approve this item for funding, not a commitment for an appointed position. A commitment, not a commitment for any particular person, but it's for an appointed position, and that person has not yet been identified.
If I may, the item has been noticed as a budget item. Therefore,
the budget item
your first motion, that's the current status of the item, but the mechanics of hiring the individual tonight that has not been noticed. So it'd be inappropriate for the council to consider a motion with regards to the mechanics and how that person will be hired and so on and so forth.
Mr. Alton, do you care to reframe your motion?
No, since I can't bring up the fact that I would like to see
what's
an
before you
appointed
tonight
position.
is the funding mechanism.
Yeah.
And there has been discussion about the position because of, that's really, you need to know that if you're going to fund it. However, ultimately, long term, in terms of how that will occur, that would be something that would need to be noticed at a subsequent meeting and decided by council.
Excuse me, is it not true that once this gets approved, the process is started?
No, not at all, because the action tonight is to keep the item in the budget. You have yet to approve the budget. Therefore, the position actually still hasn't been officially approved. So until the budget is approved, the position actually does not exist. However, the action tonight was to
If the budget were approved, would the action start?
The budget approved, would the action start? That is correct. Actually, the funding would be available for it. In terms of how that action would start, there hasn't been any clear determination because there's been general discussion about how that would work. Therefore, there's the opportunity between now and when the budget would be approved, if the council desires to discuss the mechanics of how that position will be hired, or if the council desires to make an amendment to the ordinance, which would allow for an appointed official, there is the time frame where that can occur.
Mr. Villanueva.
Yeah, so you need a motion to keep it in the budget?
Well, no, his motion died, so it's still in the budget. But so it's still there. The position is there. Richard's getting ahead of the game a little bit, but I agree. We'll deal with how the position is and what it is at a later time. But my concern right now, Michael, is it's in our budget right now at $100,000. Is that not correct? That's a dollar amount, right?
Mayor, council, the contract is in the budget for $100,000, and that $100,000 has been committed per assigned agreement with staff and the contractor.
Right. So right now it's in the budget at 100,000.
However, that $100,000 is not an ongoing amount. That amount is gone starting fiscal year 2009. So the idea here was to have a discussion on anything that might have been discussed during the work session and get some specific direction on specific items, so such as this one. And if council is going to adopt a budget, a tentative budget on the 22nd, there could be additional direction at that point as well.
Through you, Chair.
Yes, Mr.
Oh, excuse me, you still have the floor.
I would just say that I'd like to make a motion to keep that 100,000 in the budget. And it's not saying we approve of it. It's not saying, it's just saying we're allocating 100,000 for that position right now. And I'd like to make a motion to keep that in there.
I'll second it.
Mr. Just one second, Mr.
Mayor and Council, if I may, currently the status of a position is that it's is a contracted position. What's been presented to you, the $125,000 approximately, is to fund a position. If it's $100,000 that's in the budget, that will be for a contract position. That would be an independent contract position generally that would be entered into.
That, Mayor and Council, that is for 6 months of work that's been under the current rate established with the contractor. So that wouldn't be for a full year if the same rate was to be applied this year moving into next year.
Well, can you correct that, because I think that might be an error.
60,000. I will look into that, but I don't.
I'm sorry?
The $100,000 would not cover a full year.
Okay, but it more than covered the 6-month contract. 6-month contract was about 50.
About 8,000, I believe, per month.
Okay.
Mayor, members
Okay.
of the council, I mean, what we would request as staff, following Mr. Alton's and Mr. Johnson's suggestion, is what we need is a total cost of $125,000 just to budget, and then we will come back and go through whatever process the council would like us to go to, but we need a motion to fund the position at the 125.
I believe that there is a motion on the floor for 100,000, and it's been seconded.
For 100.
That's right.
Okay. But any further discussion?
Do we need to go to the 125 because I can withdraw my section? I mean my second. If we need $125,000, we need $125,000, not 100.
I'll make a second to the first.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. The motion is to fund only to $100,000.
And if I may clarify for the record, the motion was made by Councilmember Johnson for $100,000. The second is now by Councilmember Alton.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Please cast your vote.
Four yes vote, 3 no vote. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, just as a point of clarification, when we move forward with the tentative budget, we will make the changes as reflected tonight based on your direction.
Thank you.
City Clerk?
Item number 11, consideration and action on the purchase of a police deployment vehicle for the Special Assignment Unit of the Surprise Police Department. The vehicle purchase will be from the state-approved contract to purchase vehicles and accessories in a total of $69,792.36.
Maybe for the chief, are there any questions regarding this item?
Any questions, Council?
You get it right.
You can ride in it. You'll get a special invitation.
Okay, anything else? Anybody wishing to speak?
No, Mayor.
May I have an action, please?
Move to approve the purchase of the police deployment vehicle and the associated equipment for a total price of $69,792.36, with the funds coming from Homeland Security grants.
Second.
Second. In 4 seconds.
Now you're going to say second anyway.
Further discussion, please cast your vote.
Long a buzz job.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Much. Let's see, item number 12.
Thank you. Consideration and action on Resolution 08-75, a resolution approving the pre-annexation development agreement between the City of Surprise and Grand Vista.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, senior staff. As you can tell, I'm not Sintra Hoffman, but staff has, the next three items are all regarding the Grand Vista presentation. We decided to go with a tag team approach, and I will first start off with the PAD. And then Sintra Hoffman will come up regarding the development agreement, and then Vanita Kartha regarding the annexation.
Okay, so my understanding is that we're going to hear items 12, 13, and 14 concurrently, and then we'll take each item to a separate vote.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Grand Vista PADs 07-228. The location of this is in Special Planning Area 4 between State Route 74 and Grand Avenue. It is formerly the former Daimler Chrysler Proving Grounds. A little bit of a vicinity map here. You can see that it's just north of the Sunhaven project and the Whitman Ranch project. A little closer in to show you the use right now, which is the Daimler Chrysler Proving Grounds. Now, back in September of 2007, Council approved a general plan amendment for this project, and this shows that having low-density residential, commercial, mixed-use, employment, and open space. This general plan amendment also limited the amount of dwelling units up to 16,500. This slide just shows how the applicant has worked with Luke Air Force Base. This is not underneath the Luke contours, but it is within the graduated density concept, and they work very closely with Luke, and they are supportive of this project. Overall, this is about 5,500 acres, and as I said before, 16,450 dwelling units cap. The overall density is about 3 dwelling units per acre. That includes residential, commercial, mixed use, employment, and open space. The development team decided to go with a village concept for the PAD, and there are a total of 8 villages that I'd like to briefly go through. The first is the town core. It's about 530 acres, 4,000 dwelling units, with a density in that area of about 7.58. And this is going to include a downtown area with mixed use, residential over retail, and commercial and employment, and also a 34-acre urban park that I'll be showing you later on in the presentation. Number 2 is the transitional village located in the southwestern corner of the property, and this is located adjacent to 2 major thoroughfares, and this is more intense uses, about 530 acres, 1,900 dwelling units, about 3.68 dwelling units per acre. Moving up to the active adult community, and this will be one of the first phases of the project, about 1,000 acres, 2,200 dwelling units, about 2.25 dwelling units per acre. This will be graded, and it has a public golf course that will be associated, that will be part of the first phase of the development. The next 3 phases, or next 3 villages, 4, 5, and 7, are primary family units. 3 villages, the total of these 3 are about 2,000 acres, almost 5,000 dwelling units. Overall density of these areas, 2.38 dwelling units per acre. This also includes a 45-acre activity core, which will include a park and recreation area that will be dedicated to the city, and I will get into that a little bit more in my presentation. Down in the southeastern portion is the mixed-use area, and this has medium to high density residential, but also located south of Dove Valley Road is a high school. And finally, the private family village in village number 8, about 900 acres. This is only about 1.84 dwelling units per acre. This is going to be more executive housing, and this will potentially have a private golf course, and it will be gated. This graphic will illustrate the phasing. As I said, the the active adult village will be portion of the first and the golf course, and part of the primary family village will be constructed as well. Also, the downtown main park, the Central Park, if you will be part of that. And if you notice that there will be some commercial coming in about phase 3 on this. Staff did have concern with that, and they were able to put this in phase 3 of the development. Transportation. The roads surrounding this area, 211th, Dove Valley Road to the south, and 187th are going to be parkways. These are 200-foot right-of-ways with Michigan lefts, and I'm sure you heard about that before from Dr. Mackey in previous presentations. Interior-wise, we have 3 arterials that go through the project, A, B, and C, yet to be named. And you'll see down there 203rd Avenue, potentially. Depends on the phasing, who comes in first, Sun Haven, Whitman Ranch, or Grand Vista, as who will complete that portion of the road. And we have the promenade that will connect down through the east-west section of this parcel, and I also will be sharing that in the Parks and Recreation portion of the presentation. This is the Parks and Rec part of the presentation, and 19% of the project will be publicly accessible open space. Every house will have an open space, a trail, something like that within a quarter mile. So everything's going to be pedestrian accessible. And one thing I'd like to point out here, 24.5 acres per 1,000 population. Just to give you a comparison, right now our general plan has 6 acres per 1,000. What we're proposing in the new general plan is 9 acres per 1,000, and this is going as far as 24.5 acres per 1,000. The Central Park, located in Village 1, the Village Core, 34-acre park. It's going to be urban plaza with active and passive recreation. And the Activity Core, which will be located on the eastern portion of the project, will have an associated elementary school site. A total 70 acres, 45 developed acres will be dedicated to the city. And they are working with CRS and Mark Coronado to develop that and program that so it'll be usable for the city and the city's needs. Connecting these 2 parks and going east-west is the promenade. And just a little bit of a graphic to show you how that will be transferring down. And we worked with the developer here. And one of our concerns were we didn't want to see walls all the way down this promenade. So if you notice in here, they're opening it up. There's going to be houses that actually face towards this where trails cross. There's going to be openings. So it is going to be opening, nice pedestrian experience. Trails. There are very many trails. All streets, collectors, and ups will have bike trails or multi-use trails along each one. And this also, the proposed signature trail will be going through the project and be built by the applicant. The applicant has also worked with Nottaburg School District very closely. And they are going to have, I'm showing 8 on there, but it's only 5 K through 8 schools. And those will be 12 to 15 acres, and 1 high school, 60 acres, located down in the southeast corner. Also, they worked with the fire and police to locate 2 fire stations on this property. These were originally more internal to the project, but these fire stations are designed to service the region and not just Grand Vista. Also part of this is going to be design guidelines, development standards, a sign program, and parking guidelines. The regulatory process, residential to city surprise standards will be followed. And originally these, the non-residential, were going to be administratively approved. And the way that the Planning and Zoning Commission, they didn't want that to happen. They wanted all these projects to come through to be reviewed by Planning and Zoning Commission, and we have a stipulation that provides that. I'll just leave that on the master plan, and I would like to have Centra Hoffman come up to talk about the development agreement.
Mayor and Council, I'm going to go through the deal points in the development agreement. The term of the development agreement is currently a 20-year agreement with the possibility of an automatic extension of 10 years. Within 20 years, there are performance measures that the developer has to meet in order to get the automatic extension. And that's platting 2194 acres, providing water and sewer and roads to the the platted phases. So 2494 acres is approximately 40% of the project. Sewer, the developer has the option of building a temporary wastewater plant that would be limited at treating approximately 350,000 gallons per day. This would be non-reimbursable. In other words, it's temporary, so we would not reimburse impact fees for this. This would be an expenditure that the developer would make. They would build the plant, operate it, and remove it upon the settlement of the regional facility. The regional facility would be impact fee reimbursable. Transportation, believe that Bart went through the transportation improvements that the developer will be making. They will be receiving reimbursements for the roads of regional significance. They will also be they also have the option of building a temporary at-grade crossing on 203rd and Grand. That's in the event that the Sunhaven project does not come in and build that ahead of them. If they do that, that is not impact fee reimbursable. That is, again, considered a temporary solution. Parks, there's a 45-acre park that will be donated to the city. The land will be donated, and the impact fees will be paid to the city for reimbursement for the improvement of the park. There will be two fire station sites that will be land will be donated to the city, not impact fee reimbursable. However, they will also build a temporary fire station with supporting equipment, and they will also pay for operations of 2 firefighters from the start of the temporary station until the 2000 permit is issued. Impact fees will be collected and retained to build the permanent facility. That's all the questions. That's all the deal points that I have for you. I'd like to turn it over to Vinitha Kartha, who is the planner that will be handling the annexation piece of this.
Good evening, Mayor Druitt and members of the council. My portion is for item number 13 on tonight's agenda. The Grand Vista annexation has met with all the RS requirements pertaining to size, shape, and contiguity. The public hearing and notification requirements have been met as well. The annexation is also consistent with the goals of the City of Surprise Annexation Policy Manual. The signed petitions represent 100% of the owners as well as for the valuation. This pretty much concludes my portion, and at this point I will turn over the presentation to Planner Wingard.
Thank you, Vanitha. At this point, we have Paul Gilbert that would like to come up and say a few words about that review.
Thank you. Nice to be here this evening. My name is Paul Gilbert, 4800 North Scottsdale Road. I'm here on behalf of the owners of the property, Grand Vista. We're very pleased to be here. This is a culmination of over a year of very intensive and detailed work with your planning staff. We are in agreement with the presentations that have been made this evening. Parenthetically, I want to make a little correction. There was a reference to a Michigan U-turn. We have retermed that with affection, and we call it Dr. Mackey U-turns. He worked on us pretty hard to get us to accept those. Also, at the appropriate time, and maybe I'm jumping the gun here somewhat, Mr. Bailey, but in order for this to work the way it is outlined in the proposed development agreement, these should be considered in the order that they are set forth on the agenda. And Mr. Bailey, if you disagree with that, I'll expect you to speak up, or otherwise I'm going to proceed.
Yeah, I think I have the order, sir.
Okay.
We'll take them in order.
Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate that. Grand Vista, of course, will be located on the Chrysler Proving Ground properties. This property has been purchased by 3 companies, Toll Brothers, Meritage Homes, and Simon Property Group. Toll Brothers is a well-known luxury home builder with communities located across the country. And this, if approved, will be the first Toll Brothers project here in Surprise. And they and we are very excited about that. Meritage Homes is well-known home builder and is locally based with headquarters in Scottsdale and has many local projects. The Simon Group is probably not well known to mayor and members of the council, but they are a nationally known developer of regional malls and mixed-use projects, and incidentally, they are also the largest public real estate company in the United States. I have a whole caboodle of experts with me this evening that are here and available to answer questions. We pay them extra if they have to come up, so if you have any real tough questions, save them and we'll take care of them later. But let me just say we have John Christensen of Toll Brothers, Kevin Dermott, who is president of Toll of Arizona, and then we have our land planners, our engineers, and also Jim Nelson of the Nottaburg School District. And with your permission, Mayor, we would like to invite Jim to say a few words a little later as part of my presentation. Not right now, but in just a minute. This property is 5,500 acres. You know where it is, and I'm going to be referring in the course of my presentation to this packet that you have in front of you, and I'll refer to it by page number. It will help you follow what I'm going to say. If you could follow the page numbers, I'll refer to them by page number. And for the benefit of the audience, we have the same graphic on the boards that Susan Demmett, paralegal in my office, will be showing so the public can follow along as well. I'd like you to refer to page 8. The primary access to the property is from Grand Avenue to the southwest and Highway 74 to the north. There are other notable property holdings in the immediate area. You're familiar with Sun Haven Ranch to the south. The state land department is the primary property owner to the north and east, and then there is existing primarily residential development to the west, as well as a large tract of land that is owned by the BNSF Railroad. Incidentally, annexation parcels need to be contiguous, and we had to wait to come in until you annex Sun Haven. Once you annex Sun Haven, that permitted us to come in. Annexing our property will in turn make it possible so you can, if you so desire, annex the BNS property. Chrysler Corporation currently is using the property as a testing operation, as you well know, and it has a lease on the property. That lease expires in mid-2008. They, incidentally, though, have an option to extend to the end of the year, but that would be the longest period of time, if they exercise that option, in which they can be located on the property. So clearly, under any circumstances, by the end of the year, Chrysler will be vacating the property, and that segues then into an opportunity for us to begin in earnest planning and going forward with the property. Just by way of background, you adopted a general plan amendment to facilitate this project in the fall of 2007. And if you'll turn to page 4 of the exhibit, that general plan amendment established the underlying land uses, and we point out to you that the proposed PAD that is before you this evening is in 100% compliance with that approved general plan. We've had a very thorough project overview with the staff, And while I don't want to duplicate the staff presentation, there's a couple of points we wish to make that to briefly supplement it. There are, as Bart indicated, 16,450 dwelling units, but the overall density is 3 units per acre. To put that in somewhat of a position, that is the Sunhaven Ranch, which is immediately to our south, is 3.8 units per acre. We are in full compliance with all requirements of Luke Air Force Base, including their graduated density. Incidentally, under their graduated density concept, we could come in at a density of 6 units per acre. We're proposing 3. Importantly, we are in full compliance with all of their requirements. You have a letter from them vindicating that assessment. Schools are very important to us, and we have, even though we're not annexed, even though we don't have a plan approved, we have been working very closely with the Nottaburg School District, and we are dedicating the elementary schools that were indicated and also the high school. We've worked closely with the school district, and with your permission, Mayor, I'd like to just give 1 minute for Mr. Nottaburg.
Please.
Mr. Nottaburg, with Mr. Chip Nelson of the Nottaburg School District to briefly address this issue.
Mayor, Council, I like to call you friends because I've been here before, and I enjoy working with the city. We meet monthly, and I'd like to also just get a little brief advertisement before I start my 1 minute, please. I would like to thank the mayor for recognizing our school being accomplished as an A-plus School of Excellence, one of the few in Arizona. Now you will have a School of Excellence, A-plus School of Excellence within the city of Surprise. I got to brag. Our teachers are wonderful. I like to say I have really enjoyed working with Toll Brothers. They are a partner with our school district as well. They have encouraged us to achieve excellence, and they have jointly funded a program called Rodale Math in our school for the 3rd grade, and we are looking forward to continuing this program next year and expanding that into other grades. The generous donation of 5 elementary schools, I saw on the picture 8, and I was really surprised, but I'll accept 5. And oh, darn. But that is really wonderful. And then also the high school. As we grow, we're going to need that facility. It has been a joint venture that we are very happy with Toll Brothers, and I encourage you to support their project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. We've reviewed police and fire. We've done more than our duty on that. We're dedicating land for it. And incidentally, the fire locations will be co-occupied by the police department, too. We've worked that out. It's contained in the development agreement. If you'll turn to page 7 of your exhibit, a brief comment on parks and open space. We're preserving an immense amount of open space. Overall, there will be a minimum of 19% of the total project area, or almost over 1,000 acres, will be devoted to active and passive open space. We have 4 levels of parks. I'm not going to go into those in detail, but each village, and Bart showed you the map with the villages on them, each village will be interconnected by an intricate system of trails which provide for non-vehicular access to all the components of the project. We're also fully participating in the Surprise Signature Trail, and our proposal incorporates that fully. There is a significant amount of restoration that needs to be done. Although this is undeveloped land, it is not native desert. Chrysler's use of the property as a proving ground, as the name would imply, has been very disruptive and a very intense use. Many of the wash corridors, for example, were used as vehicle test tracks, and there's been a significant destruction of many of the natural features. In addition, we need to do a lot of demolition for what is on the site now. But we're committed to do that and still provide this open space that we're talking about. It is a significant commitment on behalf of the developer. Lastly, I'm happy to report that we are in full agreement with all of the staff stipulations and all of the Planning Commission stipulations. We only had one disagreement with the Planning Commission, and that was the review procedure for the non-residential portions of the application. And after discussing it with them, we cheerfully might be a little strong, but we amended our application to comport with what they requested us. So we stand tonight in the posture of a full recommendation with all stipulations from your planning staff and a full recommendation of approval from your Planning Commission. We've worked closely with your staff for close to a year, and we stand before you tonight with these positive recommendations and hope that you will share our excitement for this project. I'd be happy to answer any further questions that you have, Mayor or members of the council.
Mr. Alton?
Through you, Chair. I don't have any questions. I just want to make a comment to your clients and yourself, sir. I appreciate this opportunity and this project coming to Surprise. I think it's wonderful. I think it's going to give us great exposure to the rest of the valley, and I think that this would be a wonderful place for people to enjoy their lives as they live in Surprise. I thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Williams?
Just a point of clarification, you've got a lot of open space and open areas. Who's building the parks?
The parks will be built by the developer. Certain of the parks will be dedicated to the city of Surprise. The major activity center that Bart described to you, we will also put in the improvements, and we will put the improvements in before they're dedicated to the city of Surprise. So we're paying our way, so to speak, with these parks. Others will be owned and maintained by the homeowners association.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Surely.
I see that you have some active adults, which I take it is age restrictive.
Yes, that's correct.
What is that? Do you know? Is it 45, 55 and over? What? Just curious.
Most likely 50.
Because I'm 45, so I just want to know if I qualify.
You have a ways to go. I'm happy to report.
Okay.
55 and up will probably be the area we're talking about.
Okay, you have also private family, which I take it is that gated, I would think?
Yes, that is proposed as a gated development.
And you've got different villages. Which one plans to start first? Do you know?
Yes. Can you put that up, Bart?
Here's our phasing plan, and the active adult and portions of the family, primary family, will be of the first. You'll see the orange around those two areas here. Mm-hmm. And I'll just go back, and that is number 3 and number 4.
I would call that orange more of a yellow, but it does say phase 1.
Thank you. I'd like to thank staff too. I know this is the largest subdivision in our city, and it probably will be. And I wanted to thank the developer too, and forthwith. I'll just make that comment, and we can.
Thank you. Any further discussion? City Clerk, do we have anybody wishing to speak on items 12, 13, or 14? We are going to take them separately. Now, as to item 12, may I have a motion?
I move to approve Resolution 08-75.
Second.
Second. Further discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 13.
Approve moving ordinance number 08-20 to a second reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Item number 14.
I move to approve ordinance.
Actually, before let's have the motion and the second, then I'm going to ask City Attorney to go over something. Or would you like to do that first?
Mayor, if I can, it was placed before you. There is an amended ordinance 08-24. That will be the ordinance that you'll be approving this evening. There was an inadvertent paragraph left in there, and we made the adjustments. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Got it. Thank you.
I'll move to approve ordinance number 08-24.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the City of Surprise.
Thank you. Nice to be here. And Mayor, thank you for keeping that order. That was important to us.
Thank you for your help on that. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
surely.
City Clerk, moving on to item 15, and I believe we're going to hear 15 and 16 concurrently as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Discussion and consideration on annexation petition 08-01. And that's for Cotton Lane and Waddell Road, Cotton Lane annexation, and also discussion regarding ordinance 08-21, and that's also annexation 08-089 Cotton Lane Row annexation.
Good evening again, Mayor and members of the council. This annexation, the first one is just a public hearing. It's to satisfy requirements of ARS 9-471A3. We had a blank petition filed at the county recorder's office on April 18th, and subsequently this is a public hearing to satisfy the requirements. This pretty much concludes my presentation. There's no action required today. Item number 16 is for county right-of-way for Cotton Lane. It's two sections that are before you today. One is between Waddell and Cactus, and the other is between Acoma Drive and a point about 700 feet north of Waddell. This is an alternative procedure we follow pursuant to ARS 9-471N, wherein the County Board of Supervisors and the City Council, by mutual consent, will allow the city to annex in the right-of-way. This is the first reading of the ordinance. The second reading will be before you on May 22nd. This concludes my presentation, subject to any questions you may have on both the items.
Thank you. Any questions, Council? Okay. Is there anybody that wants to speak on either item?
No, Mayor.
Okay, and there is no action necessary on item 15, I believe. So we'll move to 16.
Move to approve moving ordinance number 08-21 to second reading.
Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please cast your vote.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Much. Let's see here. Item number 17.
Thank you. Discussion, consideration, and action on resolution number 08-72, a map of dedication.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Dennis Dorch is out tonight, so I'll be covering for him. This is a proposal for a map of dedication for the Bajada Road at Desert Oasis. This is located primarily west of 171st Avenue and south of Dynamite Road. You can see here from the aerial, it's adjacent to the Desert Oasis project to the west. What this will allow is for permitting for construction of Bajada Road, and this map of dedication will grant the right-of-way and easements necessary to move forward with the project. This does conclude my presentation, subject to any questions the council may have.
Questions, Council? None? Is there anybody wishing to speak?
No, Mayor.
Nobody wishing to speak? Then
Move to approve resolution 08-72.
Second.
motion and a second. Further discussion? Please cast your vote.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you very much. We'll move to item number 18.
The consideration and action on items to be placed on future agendas.
Mr. Longabaugh.
I have, from the last workshop, we had a long discussion regarding funding for both the museums in the City of Surprise, the Heard Museum and the West Valley Museum. And I've been in contact with some people from the Heard Museum, and they've asked if we could consider their request for $50,000 out of contingency monies to assist them in the rest of this year, of their fiscal year, which ends in September.
Okay,
I'd
thank
like
you.
to have
So
that
you're
on the
asking
agenda
for the question of the museums to be brought back on a future agenda?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? I have a request. Currently, it's optional for the commercial developers to put signage up as to what they're developing, whether they're building office buildings or stores. And I would like to request that we bring it back as an agenda item mandating that the commercial developers identify their projects so the public, when they're driving by, will know exactly what's going on. Anything else?
Yes, I would like to have some consideration and some discussion regarding the ordinance for code enforcement.
Anything specifically, Mr. Alden, or
As
in
it
general?
pertains to abatement.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Through the chair, On this portion of, and maybe you can help me, City Attorney Bailey, on this portion of the agenda, I just want to get something straight. When we do this, we're sort of doing it as a council. We're not directing staff to do something. We're just saying this could interest us. Do I have a second signature type of deal? Is that not correct?
Mayor and Council, as a general
staff.
statement, yes. These items are council-generated items. These are not staff-generated items.
Oh.
So in terms of identifying, there would be a council member's name or the mayor's name identified that, and then we would ask if there is a second signature to bring
Still
it
needs
forward.
a second signature, so, okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Let's see here. Before I ask for a motion to go to executive session, let me explain to those here and those watching on TV that when and should we go into executive session, we will come back out and not take any action, but simply adjourn the meeting. So for the TV audience, when we go into executive session, that will conclude this council meeting. Therefore, may I have a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second to go to executive session. Please cast your vote.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you very much. And council, can we be ready to go in about 5 or 6 minutes? That allows some time to get some water and so forth.